welcome back to another episode of Animel. If you haven't been in here before, I'm Mel, the host of this channel. And I feel like since the start of spring 2023 anime, which there's a few episodes for some of those animes out already, I feel like I don't want to necessarily leave winter 2023 behind just yet. Namely because there were a lot of good anime that spanned from fall into winter that had two cores, but because My Hero probably had their best season yet. Season 6 was the most exciting, the most well-paced, the most action-packed, the most emotional, and just the most I think fans have been invested in the storyline thus far. If you're an anime-only viewer, the manga is in its final arc and probably going to finish maybe at the end of this year or next year, according to the mangaka. But since we can't leave it behind just yet, it is noteworthy that while watching season 6, you could kind of see the amazingness of what makes My Hero Academia so popular. But then you could likewise recall as to why My Hero also gets just as much hate as it does love. Today we're going to dive into the wonderful components of My Hero and the not so great components of My Hero. Big warning before you dive into this video. We're going to be talking about major plot points within the series of My Hero. So if you're not fully caught up, or if you haven't watched the series yet but you have it on your list to watch, go watch it first and then come back to me. One of the very first things that you see within season 1 is that My Hero has a wonderful messaging. This messaging is that through hard work and perseverance, you can attain almost anything. Obviously, there are obstacles that you will encounter along the way, which we see through Midoriya's story as you watch him grow from season 1, where he has no quirk, is able to acquire a quirk through All Might by eating his hair, because you know, today in anime, you don't train to get stronger, you eat things to get stronger. He acquires All Might's quirk through eating of his hair, but he does go through a whole training arc because All Might's power is so powerful that not anybody can just, you know, have it. You need to be physically able to use the quirk to its best ability. So starting from season 1, even all the way up until season 6, we get to watch Midoriya go through countless different training all sorts of things. His growth has been so exponential and near infinite. As we watch Midoriya improve through training, fights, story arcs, and so on, from seasons 1 through 6, we also get to know a more personable side of him. Midoriya has been made out to be a more emotional character than what people were used to in the 90s, the early 2000s. So since My Hero came, I want to say midway 2010s, this was definitely a refreshing sight for many viewers. Other people may say otherwise, that he's too emotional and cries a lot, but I think that his emotions and the way he's able to express himself and cry openly in sympathizing or empathizing with victims of villainy or with friends, it makes him such a strong, pivotal character and was able to kind of like emulate what we see more commonly now in anime that is being animated in the 2020s now. He is like, I don't want to say he's the first, because he's probably not the first, but he was like definitely a popular character that appeared on the anime scene that kind of helped push the anime forward in terms of popularity, because you've got a character basically defying this whole male toxicity, gotta be strong, gotta be powerful, gotta be stoic, can't ever cry, persona that's kind of been maintained by male identifying or just male characters in anime prior to the introduction and animation of My Hero Academia. Aside from our wonderful character Midoriya, we also know that My Hero is wonderful because just the quirk. Midoriya is born without a quirk, and this turns into like a whole other beast in itself, like bullying and stuff like that, which are not great parts about My Hero. We hope to resolve some of these matters as the story continues. Fingers crossed. The quirks take on a different form. It's not like your generic, always standard superpowers that you're used to seeing in comic books from Marvel and DC, but they kind of like take the quirk concept and expand upon it, especially since almost everyone in the world has a quirk at this point in their life and within the storyline. The mangaka's ability to kind of introduce all these different quirks, like there's a lady who can use a rifle through her arm, Uraraka, who has the ability to defy gravity and make things float. It's like really cool and very creative. You've got Momo, who could essentially create almost any object from her body. Obviously, it's not unlimited because all these quirks take energy and training to do. With training, Momo is able to learn how to produce different things that come out of her body so long as she knows how to make them. Super big kudos to the mangaka for stretching his creativity as far as he can, especially because there are like a lot of characters in My Hero. Low-key overwhelming, to the point that you get introduced to like really cool characters and then you don't get to learn much about them. An example of this is Lady Nangan. But nonetheless, we get introduced to her character for like an episode and a half, and they give us her backstory like really quickly, and I think it was enough for us to get a sense of her character, but I felt like her character probably had more complexity and depth to it that I would have enjoyed seeing her in the storyline for a little bit longer. I don't know if we'll get to see her again in season 6. And unfortunately, in addition to that, there are other female identifying characters that also just we don't get enough screen time. So there are characters in general that don't get enough screen time that seem really cool, have pretty cool backstories, and just there's no time for it because there are way too many characters. And then you've got femme characters who you get even less screen time. With the ample amount of characters in the My Hero storyline, we also don't get the villain stories enough. We get a little bit, but not enough. So we get introduced to a villain in season 2 of My Hero Academia. This villain is known as Stain. And Stain is kind of like one of those anti-hero villains, except he commits murder, so therefore we can't let him pass and he needs to go to jail. His ideology for him being the villain that he was is that if you were a hero that was in it for money and fame, or you were acting as a hero on the front end, but on the back end you were acting like a whole and a manipulative, then you have no right to exact justice on villains and on vigilantes. So it introduces like this whole different concept into the My Hero universe, which I will get to in a minute. But with Stain, he kind of has like this really strong ideology that goes on to motivate other villains that are reoccurring within the storyline of My Hero Academia, or are the main villains that are the main antagonists for the series. And my problem with this was that, one, Stain was like a super dope villain that made you question as to whose side you should be on and who really is a hero and who really is a villain. And then number 2 is that his ideologies that were supposed to inspire others, I guess, that to do more villainy or to fight against this whole like facade of justice through the hero system, it doesn't really get held up the way that you would think it would. Some people who get inspired by him, like Tomura, who is like our main antagonist for like all of My Hero, he goes on to be like really violent, and it doesn't feel like he is exerting the justice on the hero system and the facade behind the hero system as much as I thought he would, since he was using Stain kind of like as his inspiration. Moving on from my Stain rant though, one thing I will pick out of that, which makes the whole story of My Hero very perplexing, complex, and profound, is that when we get introduced to the villain Stain, it creates a divide amongst viewers and society to some extent. It like plants this seed that heroes who are in it for the fame and the money are and heroes are actually out there to save society is who you ideally want part of the justice system. And from season 2 through season 6, a lot of happens because Stain idolizes All Might, who is the #1 hero. Cool? Stay with me now. All Might retires. The new #1 hero becomes Endeavor. Endeavor is this really like nasty personality type of dude that has this flame quirk. And as we go through the storyline, we get to learn about Endeavor's family, the Todoroki family. And Todoroki is one of the students that Midoriya goes to school with at the UA school, the hero school that he's enrolled in. When Endeavor becomes #1 hero, it creates a huge like divide amongst the audience because Endeavor is not well liked, and he tries to come back from his used to verbally abuse his wife, and she kind of became catatonic and was like in a mental institute trying to get well. His other kids also hate him. Mind you, he's the #1 hero and well loved by the public to some extent, but like and he kind of has like these villainy traits to him. And then his oldest son, which we don't get to learn much about until season 6, he was probably verbally abused the most. What I'm trying to get at here is that he's a hero, but he's abusive. I don't condone these behaviors amongst anybody. So we get introduced to this whole dichotomy concept as to what people think heroes actually are, going back to Stain's ideology. Then you've got a former hero, now villain, that I mentioned earlier, who was Lady Nagan, who used to be a hero, saw all the bad things that the justice system was trying to cover up for the sake of society not disbelieving heroes. But going back to Endeavor, so we find out halfway through season 6 that Dabi is actually Endeavor's son, and we're just like, holy shit. So like all of your abuse to make your kids the best heroes ever so that you can compete with All Might, even though you're the #1 hero now, so obviously you're regretting all this shit now, is coming back to bite you in the ass. This whole complexity that's introduced into the storyline, which is planted in season 2, turns into a tree in season 6, is what makes My Hero probably one of the most enjoyable anime on TV today. Hopefully, as you watch this video, you were kind of nodding your head along the way as you listen to me talk about the different goods and the different not goods about My Hero Academia. I do hope that you enjoyed this video and enjoyed this kind of somewhat analysis on, you know, the goods and bads of My Hero Academia. If you enjoyed this video, check out some similar like videos throughout the rest of my channel, like Trigun themes and Trigun the newest season, whether it's worth it or not. I've got a ton of other videos that are similar like this if you've enjoyed it. But that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. I will catch you all next time. Comment below with your comments, share with others. I would greatly appreciate it if you really enjoyed it. But until then, see you soon. Bye.